I just met our next author this morning, and I'm already jealous of her. I hardly ever get my wife to read anything I write, and the first thing she did was went over and bought 2 of this lady's books. So our next author is Cynthia Tolbert.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Cynthia Tolbert. I write under the name C L Tolbert, and my friends call me Cindy. I'm so glad to be here today, and so thankful to Mike Brown and Angie and Hometown Novels in the city of Sharpsburg for putting on this event. I think it's a great thing to do, and I'm very excited to be here. I am a retired attorney, but started writing a little bit prior to my retirement when I was recovering from a surgery in 2005. I had never had so much time on my hands before, so I started writing, and I started these horrible memoirs and that sort of thing, and I wasn't very happy with any of those. So I started writing a short story that was more in line with what I'd done throughout my life. And I developed this protagonist, Emma Thornton, in the story. The name of the story was Out from Silence. You write what you know, and I have a master's of special education, and I have a law degree, and so I tend to write stories about people who are who find themselves in these unfortunate circumstances and need help, and they're often the downtrodden. So I started, and almost all of my books are inspired by actual cases that I've had. The cases have been changed, the facts have been changed, but there's an inspiration to each of my books that were born from actual cases. The books that I've written, is Out from Silence is the first one, The Redemption is the second, and then Sanctuary, which shares the name with several other wonderful authors, the third book. The protagonist in all three is Emma Thornton, who in the first book, Out from Silence, was a law clerk and a third-year law student. Emma has 2 kids, and she's a single mother in this first book, and she also worked for a lawyer in town. This is based loosely on the town of Athens, although the town itself is fictitious. There's no Jonesburg, Georgia. But it's a college town, and there's a lot of rural land surrounding, farmland surrounding this college town. And the murder in question took place on the outskirts of Jonesburg at a local farm. And the main character in the story is a 19-year-old deaf man. I was fascinated with the deaf population from when I used to teach school. I taught learning disabled kids, and there was a deaf class next to me. And I was just amazed at how the teacher broke down language and how the students who couldn't hear absorbed this language and learned to communicate with sign language. But in Out from Silence, I took away Adam Gannon's ability to communicate because I gave him parents that were wealthy and very concerned with appearance. And they didn't want their son to appear disabled. So they took him out of the deaf school in the state, and they put him in with a course of lip readers, people who can understand language by reading lips. But people can only understand 30% of what's being said if you're reading lips. So they handicapped him even more. And he became a sullen man, a young man who was easily angered, and that situation didn't serve him well either. So when Emma meets him, she thought that she could communicate with him. She knew some sign language, but she couldn't. She couldn't at all. And he was a very angry, very sullen young man. So their relationship didn't start off great, but she just stuck with it, and she learned to communicate with him gradually, and they developed trust gradually. And she begins her investigation and starts uncovering hidden family secrets, and she investigates more and more and more, and she gets, and their life becomes threatened. In the end, Emma figures out the case, but also Adam is forced to come out of this world of silence that he'd been involved in, and he has to start communicating even better so that he can save himself and avoid prison. People have asked me whether or not I'm Emma Thornton, and as I said earlier, you write what you know. So there are a lot of things based on what I know and who I am, but Emma is a much different character than I am. She's far more adventuresome, she's far more impulsive. Where I'd pull back and watch, she jumps in. I seek safety. She doesn't even think about it. She just goes for it. She wants to represent her client, and she wants to solve the situation. So the second book this is the redemption, and Emma graduates from law school, and she decides to follow the dean, follow one of her professors at her law school in Georgia, down to New Orleans, where he's become the dean of the law school there. And he offers her a position. And she thought that sounded pretty good. She has 2 kids. They all pack their things up. They travel to New Orleans. And this takes place 4 years later. And she's pretty well trenched in her job and knows what she's doing. But she's never taken on a case that where the death penalty was threatened. And that's at issue in this case. So Emma teaches trial advocacy at the law school, and she also has a law clinic that really looks to the homeless population in New Orleans. And I did the same sort of job, and I did teach at a law school in New Orleans, and I did have a homeless clinic. And that is just a wealth of fodder for a crime book. And so I drew on some of that. But again, I am not Emma Thornton. She has an entirely different personality than I do. Her kids are growing up. They're starting to be more precocious and getting into a little bit of trouble there too. So there's always going to be that tension. She's raising twin boys, and that's a difficult task in and of itself. And she can't help but compare her twin boys to the young man in this case, Louis Bishop, who's been accused of murdering 2 people. And the police corruption was rampant in New Orleans at that time, so that plays a part in the story as well. My third book is just published in July of this year. The name of it is Sanctuary. And Emma is representing a young lady that she once represented earlier as a runaway, because police will gather up kids in New Orleans and arrest them. But the girl calls her again, and she has been arrested for killing the leader of a cult. After she got out of jail, she joined this cult, and this leader 3 years later was killed. This girl is charged with that crime, and Emma has to explore sort of the underbelly of New Orleans in this book, and helps resolve the case. But again, she finds herself in dangerous spots several times. So you can find more information about my books on my website, which is www.cltolbert.com. You can also find my books on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. They're also can be ordered through Virginia Highland Books, which is VAHIBooks.com, and several other places that I was surprised to find them. And I can't remember their sites right now, but there's one out of Australia, and it's just interesting who picks up your books and sells them. So you can find them out there for sure.
And the local people here in Coweta County can pick up at least the first two of your books at the Corner Arts Gallery, local author book nook.
That's right. You sure can. They've been fabulous in selling my books.
Yeah,
So I'll have to get the third one over there.
absolutely. Before you leave today, we'll see if we can make that
Oh,
happen.
that would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this experience so much.
Well, you made it extra special by being here and driving down and spending the day with us. You graced, made this whole author event a very special day for everybody. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Thank you.
I'm glad you've been here.